Last week, we looked at how seeing the rules God gives us not as describing some sort of forbidden thing. We talked about cake that you're not supposed to eat because you're on a diet, or a door that says do not enter, or a TV show that has viewer discretion is advised on, or whatever. We talked about not seeing the rules that God gives us that way, but seeing them as something that helps us to define the center of what holiness is. We said that God's holiness is so foreign to us that when he begins to describe it to us, he starts in the negative. It's not this, it's not this, it's not this. So we drew this diagram, looked almost identical to this, depending on which one of our gatherings you came to last week. I didn't draw it exactly the same way every time, but the idea was that we can see the rules as these fences, and that the idea is if we're always looking at the rules as fences that describe the forbidden stuff that's out here, we're always looking towards those forbidden things. And we said the alternative to that is something a little more like this, that we see them as these coordinate points that help us to kind of go, okay, this isn't, this isn't, this isn't. And so from there, we begin to be able to triangulate the center of holiness, which is, of course, Jesus himself. And so we talked about this idea of reorienting our posture away from seeing the rules as things that help us look out at what's forbidden, and instead look to the center, to who Christ is, and be pulled towards him, because we said you are pulled towards what you're postured towards. Today, we're going to pick up right where we left off. We're going to kind of sort of jump in on this diagram. We're going to take a little chunk of this and blow it up and look at it a little bit more. And we're going to discover that not only are you pulled towards what you're postured towards, but even more profoundly, are you ready for this? You get to where you move to. If you head in a direction, that's where you're going. I know, it's crazy stuff. Aren't you glad you came out to church so you could learn such mind-bending realities? But, all right, so we're in Colossians chapter 3. We're passing the halfway point. There's 4 chapters in Colossians, and we're into chapter 3 now. It's going to take us a little while to get through the text. Not that it's long. We're just going to have to stop a few times, but here we go. Since you have been raised to new life with Christ, okay, there's our first break. Since, this is a contingent statement he's about to make. He's saying, in light of everything else I've already said, since, recapped by saying, you've been raised to new life with Christ. So since Christ is so great, so high, so incredible, that's that high Christology we talked about in one of our early weeks. And since, like we talked about on Easter, Christ died and rose again in victory over sin, hell, death, and the grave. And since when you put your faith in him, you died with him, and your sin died with him, but your sin died permanently, and now you're forgiven and restored to a right relationship with God. You've received new spiritual life, and someday when you die, you'll be resurrected to new life, and you'll spend eternity with God. Since you have been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. For you died to this life, and your real life is hidden with Christ in God. And when Christ, who is your life, is revealed to the world, you will share in all his glories. When he says set your sights on the things of heaven, or the realities of heaven, he's kind of setting up this compare and contrast between heaven and earth. But what he's getting at is heaven and earth as opposed to the things of heaven, which are holy, and the things of earth, which are currently fallen and sinful. They'll one day be redeemed, but that's not where we're at yet. He's not saying, I want you to daydream about a peaceful place where you'll go someday after you die. That's not the things of heaven or the heavenly realities he's calling us to focus on. He's saying focus on what is at the heart of heaven. And what is at the heart of heaven is a who. And that who is God. And the way that he is described day and night over and over and over again in Scripture, we see this recorded that over and over and over again, God is just described as holy, holy, holy. Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. Holy, holy, holy. The heart of heaven is holiness. More specifically, the heart of heaven is the Holy One. And so when he's saying, hey, we got to go back a page. Quit looking at the things of earth, the things on the other side of these fences, right? He's saying, no. Turn your attention to the things of heaven, the things that are holy, the things that are godly, the things that are Christ-like, to Christ himself. That's what you want to be focused on. That's what you want to be. It's all the stuff I said last week. So, this is verse 5. So, we got to stop again. So, with our vision for Christ clarified, with our eyes fixed on him and his holiness, we're now prepared to approach the rules in the right way. We now understand what role these are trying to play in our lives, right? We're now ready to see the rules as something that helps us define the center rather than having to describe all the forbidden stuff and actually become a source of temptation because of that. So, in light of all that, Paul says, here are some rules that you should follow, but also what it looks like to do so properly. So, put to death the sinful earthly things lurking within you. Have nothing to do with sexual immorality, impurity, lust, and evil desires. Don't be greedy, for a greedy person is an idolater, worshiping the things of this world. Because of these sins, the anger of God is coming. You used to do these things when your life was still part of this world. But now is the time to get rid of anger, rage, malicious behavior, slander, and dirty language. Don't lie to each other. For you have stripped off your old sinful nature and all its wicked deeds. Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become more like him. All right, let's pray. Father, be with us today as we look at your word. Help us to understand not just the direction we need to orient our focus, but the direction we need to set our momentum in. God, would you give us a clearer and clearer vision, a clearer and clearer picture, a deeper and deeper hunger for holiness, for the Holy One. We ask this in his name. Amen. So we could talk about all the sins that Paul addresses here, but there's nothing real earth-shattering. Like there's no like, whoa, I can't believe he said that's a sin, right? He says, he talks about sexual immorality, both the things that happen between the sheets and the things that happen between your ears. He talks about greed. It's interesting that when he talks about greed, he says it's idolatry. Greed is a form of worship. It is a looking to, it is a deferring to, it is a valuing, it is being dictated by wealth, possessions, material things. That's kind of an interesting little tidbit. He talks about getting rid of things like rage and anger and malicious behavior. These are all just kind of versions of wanting to hurt somebody, right? It shows a real lack of peace and patience and grace and self-control. And then he talks about some what we call sins of the mouth. Slander, the word that's translated here as slander also covers the idea of blasphemy, so like slandering other people, but also slandering God. Dirty language, I love, every now and again the literal translations are just funnier. The literal translation here for dirty language is filth out of your mouth. It's like, I just love that. It's like, you know that filth that comes out of your mouth? Knock it off, right? It talks about lying as well. That stuff's all sinful. No big news flashes here. I think what's actually more interesting and more informative is not what these sins are, but how Paul speaks about how we should deal with them. What the response that the Colossians and the rest of us should have to those. He says, put them to death. He says, get rid of them. And he talks about stripping them off. Those are all pretty strong ways to talk. That's pretty strong language. He doesn't just say kind of avoid them or do your best not to do them or even just don't do them. Put them to death, get rid of them, strip them off. Put them to death means just that. Kill them. Kill them till they're dead, right? Kill those earthly, again, talking fallen and sinful, not saying like, don't like flowers, they're from earth. Like that's not the idea, right? He's saying kill the earthly, the fallen, the sinful stuff that's within you as opposed to the holy, the heavenly, the Christ-like things within you. And he gives examples of what those would look like. And then he says, get rid of. That means to put away, to put in another location, to get away from. It's this distancing of yourself from something. Get rid of, throw away, cast aside. And he gives this example of some sins. And then on the third kind of list, you know, they come in little chunks. He kind of brings those two ideas together. He says, verse 9, for you have stripped off your old sinful nature and all its wicked deeds. Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like him. The word that's translated here as nature helps us to understand what he's getting at by what he's saying more literally, but the more literal language helps us to see the connection between this and what he said earlier on. The word here that's translated as nature is anthropos or anthropos. It's the same root we get words like anthropology or anthropomorphic. It just means human. It means person. He's saying, I want you to strip off your old person. The older translations that from back in the days when man was understood to be a generic term for all of humanity would say, strip off your old man. Get rid of your old man and put on a new person, a new self, a new reality of who you are. Murder, right? Put to death. Murder your old self. Take him off and throw him away. That's pretty aggressive language. Then put on your new self, this new humanity, this new creation, this new woman. Strip off and put on here, this language he's using, is likely actually a reference to baptism. In the early church, also just incidentally, the word he says strip off, I don't know how many of you were paying real close attention, but back in the High Christology week, we talked about how it says Christ has disarmed the powers, and we said that actually means he stripped them bare. It's the exact same word that's being used here. He's saying strip bare. That's a hint that he's actually referencing baptism, because in the early church, they baptized people naked. Like that would have made for a much more awkward video, eh? When you were being baptized, you took off your old clothes, I mean right down to nothing, to your birthday suit, and then you would go into the water, you'd be baptized, and then when you came out, you'd be given this new white robe to wear. This brilliant white robe that symbolized the cleansing of your heart and the washing away of your sins, this purity of this new life that you now had. Now, eventually, and thankfully, it became the tradition to give people that robe before they got into the water to save a whole lot of awkwardness, but that was another one of those things that was carried over from the Jewish mikveh tradition that we talked about on Easter Sunday. In fact, you still see some remnants of this today. If you were to go to one of the African United Baptist Association churches here in town, I know for sure do this because I've seen lots of pictures from their baptisms. They still have people wear white robes when they're being baptized. If you go to a more traditional liturgical church, a lot of times you'll see most of the people that wind up on the platform are wearing a white robe. It's called an alb, and the idea is that is your baptismal robe. And it's speaking to this idea that you have been baptized, that you are one of the baptized, and that's why you're able to serve in whatever that role is that you're serving in as a part of that worship. But that's pretty clearly what Paul is picturing here, is this idea of, all right, you're going to take off this old way of life. You've been clean, now put on this new way of life. I can wear the same pair of jeans like for a week straight. I'm just going to confess to you right now. This is probably day 4 or 5 of these bad boys. Not a problem at all. I can wear the same shirt 3-4 days in a row. It doesn't bother me at all. I can wear the same like t-shirt or socks maybe a couple of times. Maybe it's not my preference, but like in a pinch, I can bring myself to do it if there's some reason. But I'll tell you what, there's not a way in this world I'm ever putting on a pair of underwear I've worn before. I mean, not until they've been washed. Like, I don't care what's going on. I don't care. I will cancel every plan I have and stay home and do laundry if that's what it takes, right? Especially if I've showered since, right? Like, there's no way I'm taking off a pair of underwear, taking a shower, and then putting those same underwear back on. Not gonna happen. This is the idea Paul's getting at. Saying, I want you to strip off that old sinful nature. That old sinful person has been stripped away by Jesus like a pair of dirty drawers. And you have been washed by Jesus, and now you are clean. Don't go putting those same dirty undies back on again. Don't go putting that same way of life, that same way of thinking, that same way of focusing, that same way of wanting. Don't go putting that back on. Put on the fresh, clean robe of Christ-likeness. Here's what I want you to see in Paul's language here that he uses. It's really definitive. Like it's very stark. Kill your old nature, your old instincts, your old habits, your old cravings, your old man. Don't just make him ride shotgun from now on, Don't just try to keep him in line. Jesus basically says, or Paul, speaking what Jesus would have us do, says, look, murder him. Murder that old guy. Don't just kind of try to bargain with him. Don't try to go, hey, you're going to need to just cool it a little bit, sinful nature. He says, murder him. Listen, don't try to manage what Jesus has told you to murder. Don't try to manage what Jesus has told you to murder. Now, some of you are going, murder, that's such strong language. Yeah, that's my point. That's what Paul is saying. He's going, kill it till it's dead, right? Don't try to manage what Jesus told you to murder. It's very definitive. Like dead and not dead is a fairly clear line, with all due respect to the Princess Bride. It's definitive. A little inside. Okay, cool. A little Easter egg for you. It's definitive. It's distinct, right? As in it causes you to make distinctions. You can't do both and. It's an either or situation that Paul is putting us in here, right? You can't put away your sin and keep it with you. You can't drop it and leave it behind you, but also still carry it. We're getting ready to move, and so we've been doing two major things in our house: purging and packing, right? So all the stuff we don't want to bring with us, we're getting rid of. So some stuff is getting sold, some stuff's getting donated, some stuff's just going in the garbage. But we're purging, and then we're packing. We're putting stuff in boxes that we can one day load in a truck, and off we'll go. We're purging and packing. You cannot purge and pack the same thing. You got to pick, right? You can't throw it out and bring it with you. If you're going to put it in a box and load it in the truck, it's going to come along no matter how much you think you don't want it. You can't purge and pack the same stuff. That's the kind of dichotomy. That's the sort of distinction. That's the sort of either or that Paul's language puts us in. He's not saying, guys, I want you to carry your sin differently. He's saying, no. I want you to purge it. I'm not telling you how to pack it. I'm telling you to purge it. It's distinct, and then it's directional, right? Don't just murder or throw away your old sinful nature, but now also then put on your new sinful nature. Or your new spiritual nature, your new holy nature. There's this idea of movement, right? You strip off, you're washed, and then you are re-robed in righteousness. You strip off, you're washed, and then you put on. All right, so here we go, back to this diagram. We're going to try to just blow up one little section of it here, right? So this is one of those lines that we drew. So there you've got your line. We often see the rules we set as a fence. For the sake of our conversation today, we're just going to say a line. There's this line. That's the rule. That's the thing God said, can't do this. Don't go over here. And so we see the law, we see the rules, we see God's commands as the line we're supposed to stop at. Can you see the insanity that is baked in to that idea? It's absolutely insane. Basically, what this implies is you should move towards, you should drive towards, your momentum should be towards sin, but try to stop here. Build up all this momentum, and then Lord, help as your helper, you'll have some brakes you can put on. As if holiness is just a matter of braking power, right? I'm so spiritual, I can stop on a dime. I can chase sin, I can look towards sin, I can pursue sin, but I know how to stop when I'm supposed to, right? Doesn't that sound like the alcoholic? I can stop anytime I want, man. Yeah, sure you can. You get to where you move to. If you keep moving toward sin, I don't care how far away you are now, if you keep moving toward sin, you're going to get there. You will arrive. You get to where you move to. We talked about that whole idea of cake, right? If you're licking the beaters, eventually you're going to eat the cake. You can't just be like, oh, this is delicious. I'm not going to have the cake, but this is delicious, right? You get to where you move to. This definitive, distinct, and directional language calls us to see this stuff differently. Sin is not a line to be stopped at, right? It's a dead body to be walked away from. Sin is not a nice pair of, oh, Lord help me, I can't draw shoes. Sin is not a nice pair of shoes to like look at and think about, maybe try on, but don't buy them. That would be too much. It's an old, here we go. See if I can pull off a good Y front. Is that how those go? It's an old dirty pair. Those are the stink lines. Old dirty pair of underwear to be thrown in the garbage and walked away from and never thought about again. Sometimes we think of the rules as a road sign, right? And that's not a bad idea, but we got to know what sign the road sign is. And what we usually think is the rules are a road sign. Sam's dying back there because this is way too small to show up on video, but it's okay. We think the rules are a road sign that says stop, right? So drive this way, but when you get to this, stop. The rules are a road sign, but they're not a stop sign. They're one of those signs that say wrong way. Like, it's not that you need to stop here. It's dummy, turn around and go the other direction. It's not wait here for something to happen. It's no. Do a U-ey and get going in the other direction. It's a wrong way sign saying turn around and go the other way because you get to where you move to. Stop signs aren't magic. Have you ever seen someone run a stop sign? You ever run a stop sign? You don't have to raise your hand. I don't think there's any cops here right now. But you ever just not see it? You ever notice that when you don't see a stop sign, it doesn't make your car stop? Like, it's not magic. It doesn't have power. It just informs you that this would be the place you're supposed to stop. If you keep moving, you keep building up momentum in this direction, doesn't matter how big that stop sign is, you're going to move past it. Your momentum will carry you past it because you get to where you move to. But if you quit just trying to stop at sin and instead start driving towards holiness, right? So this time, this is the direction we're headed in. This is where we're going. This is what we're headed towards. Because we know that over here is the wrong way. That's two W's. Wrong way, right? Some will go, oh, I need to go this way. I want to head this way. I am looking to the realities of heaven. I'm setting my sights on the one who is at the heart of heaven. I'm looking to the one about whom the angels cry, holy, 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 24/7, 365 except leap year, and then it's 366 if my math is correct. That's the momentum, that's the trajectory that holiness puts us on. And with that new direction, we start asking better questions, right? We don't start going, where do I have to stop? We start saying, how far do I get to go? Not where's the point where I got to put on the brakes, but what if I just floor it and see where we wind up? Not when does this relationship with someone other than my spouse technically become adultery? And instead we say, how well can I love my spouse? Not how much smut could I watch before technically I am lusting, but instead, how much can I set my thoughts on things that honor God? How much can I see people that I might find attractive, not as objects for my gratification, but as people that Jesus died for? Not how much can I want to accumulate before I'm actually greedy, and instead, how generous can I be with the resources God has blessed me with? Not what words can I say that aren't technically swears, but how can I best use my words to build other people up? You ask different questions. You're headed in a different direction. And here's the great thing. If you're headed in this direction, you can just pursue this stuff. Just give her. Just floor it. Just go for it, right? This is what Paul, I think, is talking about when he talks about the fruit of the Spirit. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. And then he says this little thing at the end that we kind of go, yeah, that's how it ends. But against such things, there is no law. Here's what I think he's getting at. He's saying, you don't have to figure out where to stop with joy. You don't have to figure out where to stop with peace. You don't have to figure out where to stop with patience. You just keep booting her. There's no, like that, there's no law. You're not going to hit, there's no stop sign coming. There's no fence coming. This is stuff we can pursue with all our hearts as we move closer and closer to Jesus. You can just freely pursue that stuff. You don't even need brakes. Because against such stuff, there isn't any law. There is no stop sign coming. You aren't trying to move towards sin, but then stop in time. You aren't trying to grasp heaven with one hand, but keep a grip on hell with the other hand. If you're looking to Jesus, if you're submitting yourself to Jesus, if you're listening to Jesus, learning to know Jesus, obeying Jesus, postured towards Jesus, oriented towards Jesus, moving towards Jesus, you will inevitably become more and more like Jesus. And that means you will become more and more holy because you get to where you move to. It might take a long time, but sooner or later, if you keep moving in that direction, that's where you're going to be getting to be more and more often. So how do we do it? How do we actually do this? Paul actually tells us, and it's so simple we miss it, I think a lot of times when we first read this passage. Verse 10, the last part of it. Put on your new nature. Right, okay, cool. How do we do that? And be renewed. Okay, yes, I get it. How? As you learn to know your Creator and become like Him. Worth pointing out that in this epistle, Paul belabors the fact early on, right? High Christology week, we keep coming back there. That's kind of the linchpin of this whole book, that Jesus is the Creator. It's good Trinitarian theology. Jesus is not some separate thing from the Creator. Jesus is the Creator. The Father is also the Creator. The Spirit is also the Creator. But Jesus is the Creator. He says, here's how you do this. You get to know Jesus better. You learn to know Jesus. And as you do that, you'll become more like Him. And as you become more like Him, your old man will be dying. As you become more like Him, you'll be letting go of that sinful stuff. All that stuff that's been stripped away, you won't be picking that back up. I had the privilege on Friday to be in a room with a group of pastors here from Atlantic Canada. We were in Moncton, and we were gathered together basically just to sit at the feet of a guy who's kind of a hero to me by the name of Daryl Johnson. Daryl is an older, retired pastor and seminary professor. Brilliant guy. I recommend anything he has written, you should read. Anything he has said, you should listen to. And there's very few people I would say that about, but he's just phenomenal older guy. He was sharing with us that it had been, I think he said 54 years since he had preached his first sermon. So this is a guy who's walked with Jesus for a long time, and we had the opportunity to ask him questions, and one of the questions that was asked was, look, how do you make it to that? Like, this is a dude who's been following Jesus faithfully for decades and decades, longer than I've been alive. How do you maintain spiritual vitality? How do you maintain your character? How do you maintain your passion to serve other people? How do you do that, man? How do you not just finish well as if you're in the back half, but how do you make it to the finish where you can finish well from? Here's what Daryl said. Live in the Scriptures. Eat the Scriptures. Drink the Scriptures. Breathe the Scriptures. Live in the Scriptures because you see Jesus there. So if you're wondering what it looks like concretely to look to Jesus, we got to look at the place we see Him the most clearly, and that's in His Word. And so be in the Word, read the Word, study the Word, pray the Word, live in the Scriptures. So put to death the sinful earthly things lurking within you. Have nothing to do with sexual immorality, impurity, lust, and evil desires. Don't be greedy, for a greedy person is an idolater, worshiping the things of this world. Because of these sins, the anger of God is coming. You used to do these things when your life was still part of this world, but now is the time. Now is the time. Right now. Not tomorrow, not later, not someday, not eventually. Now is the time to get rid of anger, rage, malicious behavior, slander, and dirty language. Don't lie to each other, For you've stripped off your old sinful nature and all its wicked deeds. Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become more like Him. Let's pray. Father, thank you that this is very simple. But we confess it is also very hard. It's not an issue of it's so complex we can't get our heads around it. It's that it requires a level of consistency that a lot of times we don't have in our own strength. And so, Holy Spirit, we invite you to help us, first of all, to see sin for what it is, death and decay and destruction. To see your law for what it is, not a fence we're supposed to go up and sit on, or not a line we're supposed to try to stop at, but ultimately as wrong way signs that tell us, actually, you're going the exact wrong direction, dude. Turn around and go the other way. And then as we dive deeper and deeper into your word, Jesus, would we encounter you there? Would we see you more and more clearly? I think of Isaiah in chapter 6, where it says he sees the Lord high and lifted up, sees the full majesty and glory of you, God. And the first thought it was on his mind is, oh my word, I'm filthy. I need to be more like this God. I need to be cleansed. God, would you help us to see you with that level of clarity? And that as we see you more clearly, as we learn to know our Creator, we would indeed become like you, that we would become like Christ, that we would be holy. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen.